The sky was dark above the alien world, filled with two red moons that watched like silent eyes. Deep inside the forest, where glowing plants lit the ground, a tall figure stood. Her name was Kalira. She was a warrior of the Zorath, a proud alien race known for their strength and their hatred of humans. Kalira's armor was made of black metal, sharp at the edges, shining in the moonlight. Her eyes glowed faint silver, and her long hair, tied with iron rings, fell across her shoulders. Every Zorath child was raised to believe one truth: never trust a human. Never serve a human. Never obey a human. Kalira had taken this vow long ago, the vow that shaped her life. She would never obey a human. Never. Why? Because her people remembered the old wars. Humans had once arrived in their galaxy with machines, fire, and endless hunger for more worlds. Even after peace treaties, the Zorath whispered stories of human lies. To Kalira, humans were nothing but weak bodies hiding behind clever tricks. They did not deserve respect. That night, Kalira hunted alone in the forest, but the silence broke. A sharp sound tore across the sky, something burning, something falling. She looked up. A fireball cut through the darkness, breaking apart and crashing into the hills nearby. The ground shook, birds of steel wings screamed, and smoke rose above the trees. Kalira's silver eyes narrowed. She knew what it was: a ship. She moved swiftly, her steps silent. Branches snapped under her boots as she approached the crash site. The air smelled of smoke and melted metal. Broken parts of a small human starship lay across the clearing. Sparks hissed, lights blinked, and the hull was torn open like paper. And then she saw him, a human. He crawled out from the wreck, his clothes torn, blood running down his face. His breathing was heavy, his movements slow. Kalira froze, her hand on the hilt of her plasma blade. Her heart beat louder in her chest. The vow whispered inside her mind: never obey a human. Never help a human. Destroy them if you must. Her people would expect her to kill him. One swing of her blade and the vow would remain unbroken. She stepped closer, her shadow falling across the human. But then, he looked up. The human's eyes were not filled with fear. Even wounded, even weak, he looked at her calmly, almost as if he was not afraid to die. His lips moved and he spoke in a rough voice. Do it then. Kalira's blade stopped in the air. She had expected begging or screaming or desperate words, but this human was different. He was not pleading for his life. He was daring her to strike. Something twisted inside her chest. Anger, confusion? She didn't know. She only knew she could not swing the blade. She grabbed him instead, lifting his broken body with her strength. Why do you not fear me? She asked, her voice low, almost like thunder. The human coughed, blood at his lips, but his voice was steady. Fear? You're just flesh and bone like me. Kill me if you want, but if you leave me alive, you might find I am more than you think. His words burned in her mind. They were simple, but powerful. Humans were supposed to be cowards, yet this one was not. Kalira carried him deeper into the forest against every law of her people. She laid him inside a hidden cave, where water dripped from stone and shadows hid them. She told herself it was only to question him later, only to prove his arrogance wrong. But deep inside she knew there was another reason. Something about him had broken through the vow. Outside, the night was restless. Kalira could hear the search patrols of her own people moving through the trees. They were hunting. They would find the crash and they would find him if she left him there. The human watched her in silence. His breathing was slow, but his eyes still held that strange light. Fearless, almost proud. Kalira turned away, her hand pressing against the cave wall as if to steady herself. She whispered the vow again like a prayer. Never obey a human. Never obey a human. Yet as she looked back at him, weak but unbroken, she felt something change inside her. For the first time in her life, Kalira was not certain of her vow, and that uncertainty was more terrifying than any human. The cave was silent except for the sound of dripping water. Kalira stood at the entrance, her sharp eyes watching the forest outside. The human lay behind her, breathing heavy, his body weak but his gaze still steady. She had hidden him, but she knew this safety would not last. Her people were hunters. Once they smelled blood, they never stopped. A faint vibration ran through the ground. Kalira felt it under her boots. Patrol units. She could hear their machines moving closer, the humming of scanners, the clicking of drones. Her people would soon reach the crash site, and then they would search the woods. The human spoke. His voice was rough, broken, but carried strength. "You're protecting me." Kalira did not turn. "I am not," she said coldly. "I am deciding what to do with you." He gave a weak laugh, painful but bold. "If you wanted me dead, I would already be dead." Her fingers tightened on her blade. The human's words cut through her pride like knives. She hated that he was right. She should have left him at the crash, but something about his eyes, his voice, his courage, it made her hesitate. A sudden beam of light sliced through the trees outside. Kalira pressed herself against the cave wall, pulling the human deeper into the shadows. A scout drone hovered outside, its red lens glowing like a burning eye. Kalira's heart pounded. If the drone scanned the cave, it would find them. She looked at the human. His lips were pale, his chest rising slow, but still his eyes stayed locked on her, as if he trusted her. That trust burned inside her. She didn't want it, but it was there. With a swift move, she grabbed a rock and hurled it across the forest. The sound of the impact echoed, and the drone turned, chasing the noise. Its light vanished. Silence returned, the human whispered. "You saved me again." Kalira snarled. "Do not mistake this for mercy. If they find you here, I will be punished. That is the only reason I moved you." But even as she said it, the words felt hollow. The forest outside grew louder. Voices of her people carried on the wind, deep, commanding, filled with suspicion. They were close now, too close. She could not hide him here any longer. Kalira looked at the human. He was weak, almost unable to move. If she left him, he would die. If she carried him, she would risk her own life. The vow whispered again in her mind. Never obey a human. Never help them, and then his voice came again, soft but strong. "I can walk, if you help me." For a moment, her pride burned. Help him? A human? She wanted to spit at the thought. But then she saw the blood on his face, the fire in his eyes. He was not begging. He was not ordering. He was asking, not with weakness, but with stubborn will. Kalira lifted him onto her shoulder. He was heavier than he looked, but her warrior body carried him with ease. His breath brushed against her armor, hot and shaky. She stepped out of the cave, moving carefully into the shadows of the glowing forest. Every sound felt like thunder. Every step felt like it would reveal them. Patrol lights flashed between the trees. Voices shouted commands. Drones flew above, scanning the ground. Kalira moved like a ghost, silent and swift, her heart beating in time with the human's breaths. At one point, a patrol unit stopped only a few steps away. 2 Zorath soldiers scanned the ground, their weapons glowing. Kalira pressed against a tree, holding the human close. She felt his heartbeat against her armor, fast but steady. The soldiers spoke in their native tongue. The human cannot have survived, but the trail of blood continues. Search deeper. Kalira closed her eyes. If they turned, if they looked, they would see her. The human's lips moved against her shoulder. "Put me down." "Save yourself." Her eyes flashed with fury. "Silence," she hissed. "I decide who lives." With a sudden burst of speed, she leapt into the branches above. Her body moved with the power of her training, her steps light as air. She carried him through the trees, far from the patrol, deeper into the wild forest where the lights could not follow. Finally, they reached a hidden glade where the ground glowed faint blue. Strange flowers pulsed with light, casting shadows across their faces. Kalira laid the human down gently, though she told herself it was not out of care. The human coughed, blood staining his lips, but his eyes still held that strange light. "Why are you helping me, alien?" Kalira stared at him, her silver eyes burning. "Do not think this means I obey you. I save you for my own reasons, and what reason is that?" he asked softly, her jaw tightened. She had no answer. The vow echoed in her mind again, louder this time, like chains tightening around her. Never obey a human. Never help them. Never trust them. And yet, as she looked down at him, alive because of her, she felt something she could not name. Something dangerous. Something that would change everything. The hidden glade was quiet, but Kalira could not rest. The human sat against a stone, his body weak, his breathing heavy. She had given him water from the glowing stream nearby, but still his skin looked pale. His ship was destroyed, and without help, he would not survive long. Kalira sharpened her blade against a rock. The sound echoed through the cave-like hollow, sharp and cold. She wanted him to hear it. She wanted him to remember that his life was still in her hands. The human spoke first. His voice was weak, but it carried a strange calm. You saved me twice, why? Kalira did not answer at once. Her silver eyes stayed on the blade. Finally she said, Do not mistake me for a servant. I saved you because your death would bring my people here. I do not care for you. The human gave a faint smile, though his lip was cracked with blood. You care enough to lie. Her hand froze. The words cut deeper than any blade. She turned on him, eyes blazing. You dare speak to me that way? You, a broken human, think you can read my thoughts? He coughed, but his smile stayed. I don't need to read them. I can see it in your eyes. You want to kill me, but something stops you. Kalira rose, her tall frame casting a shadow over him. She placed the blade against the stone beside his head, close enough for him to feel the heat of its edge. Careful, human. My patience is thin. He looked up at her, fearless. Then kill me, end it. Prove your vow. Her hand trembled, not with fear but with rage. He was challenging her, pushing her pride. If she killed him, she would obey her vow. But if she spared him again, she would be breaking it more and more. The human's voice softened. You want to prove you're stronger. But strength is not only in killing. Sometimes strength is in choosing not to. Kalira stepped back, fury burning in her chest. Do not speak of strength to me. I am Zorath. I was trained from birth to fight, to conquer. I do not need lessons from a dying human. The human tried to sit up, groaning in pain. And yet, here I am, still alive, still making you question yourself. For the first time in years, Kalira felt unsure. Her people never questioned. Her people never doubted. But this human, this weak creature, was forcing her to think in ways she had sworn never to. He spoke again, quieter this time. Help me repair my ship. Let me leave. Then your vow will stay unbroken. You'll never see me again. Kalira laughed, but it was a bitter sound. Help you? Do you think I will obey your request? Never. His eyes locked on hers. I didn't ask you to obey. I asked you to choose. The word struck her like a blade to the heart. He was clever, twisting her pride against itself. She wanted to spit on him, to end him, to silence that voice. But another sound interrupted them. Metallic clicks, faint at first, then louder. Kalira's head snapped up. She knew that sound. Drones. The human tried to move, but he was too weak. Kalira rose to her full height, blade in hand, her body tense. Red lights flickered in the trees beyond the glade. The patrol had returned. They were scanning the forest, and this time they were closer. She looked back at the human. His jaw was set, his eyes locked on hers. Go, leave me. You don't need me slowing you down. Something inside her twisted again. He was ready to die, but not in fear, not in weakness. He was ready to face death with pride, and suddenly Kalira understood. That was what made him dangerous. That was what made him human. The drones entered the glade, red beams sweeping across the glowing flowers. Kalira moved like lightning, her blade cutting through the first machine with a hiss of sparks. The second fired, beams of plasma striking the rocks, but she spun and shattered it with a roar. The human shielded his eyes as metal pieces rained around him. Kalira stood over him, chest rising and falling, silver eyes blazing. When the last drone fell, silence returned. The glade was filled with the smell of smoke and burnt metal. Kalira looked down at him. Her words came out like steel. You think I obeyed you? No, I fought for myself. I fought because I do not lose, but deep inside she knew the truth. She had fought to protect him. Not her vow. Not her pride. Him. The human leaned his head back, his breathing rough but steady. Then maybe you and I are not so different. Kalira turned away, but her hands trembled. For the first time in her life, her pride felt like a chain instead of a weapon, and she wondered how long she could carry it before it broke. The glowing glade was quiet again, but the silence felt heavier than before. Burned drone pieces smoked in the grass. Kalira stood tall, her blade humming with faint energy, while the human leaned against the stone, pale but unbroken. Neither spoke for a long time. Finally, the human broke the silence. If you keep saving me, people will start to think you like me. Kalira turned sharply, her silver eyes flashing. Do not mistake survival for affection, human. I kept you alive because your death would shame me. I do not protect the weak, he smiled faintly. Even hurt, he seemed to enjoy testing her. Then maybe I should thank your pride instead of you. Her jaw tightened, but she said nothing. She hated how his words twisted into her thoughts, how easily he spoke without fear. No other creature would dare mock a Zorath warrior. And yet, she did not strike him. The human shifted, wincing in pain. If I stay here, your people will find me. If I try to walk alone, I'll die. If you want me gone, help me repair my ship. That way you'll be rid of me. Kalira's heart burned. Every word from him felt like a trap. You ask for my help as if I am your servant. Do not forget my vow. I don't want obedience, he said simply. I want a choice. You can leave me and I die, or you can help me and I leave your world. Either way, the decision is yours. The simplicity of his words angered her more than any insult. It would have been easier if he begged. It would have been easier if he feared her. But no, he spoke like an equal, as if her blade and his weakness weighed the same. Kalira wanted to walk away. She wanted to prove him wrong, but her eyes fell on his wounds, the slow rise and fall of his chest and the strange fire in his eyes. Against her will, she spoke. Where is the core of your ship? The human's eyes lit up, though his body sagged with exhaustion, buried near the crash. Without it, the ship won't fly. With it, maybe I can leave. Kalira's mind raced. The patrols were still close. Going back meant risk, but staying here meant certain death for him, and questions for her if her people found his body. She hissed through her teeth. You will slow me down. I'll move as fast as I can, he said, trying to rise. His legs shook under him. He nearly fell, but Kalira caught him by the arm. Her grip was strong, steady. Do not mistake this for kindness, she warned. If you fall, I leave you. He nodded, but she saw the faint smile on his lips again. They moved through the forest together. Kalira's senses were sharp, scanning the shadows, listening for patrols. The human stumbled often, his body weak, but each time he forced himself forward. She found herself watching him, curious. A weak body, yes, but a stubborn spirit. At last, the burned wreckage appeared through the trees. The crash site still smoked, broken metal scattered across the clearing. Patrol markers glowed in the dirt, proof that Zorath soldiers had already searched here. Kalira cursed under her breath. Too late, but the human pointed weakly. The core chamber is beneath the cockpit. If they didn't dig deep, it might still be there. Kalira knelt, pushing aside twisted metal with powerful arms. Beneath the wreck, faint blue light glowed. The energy core, cracked but intact. The human's voice was almost a whisper. You found it. She lifted it, heavy and burning with unstable energy. This will not last long, she said. Even repaired, it is weak. Then it's like me, he answered. Weak but still alive. She shot him a sharp look, but his stubborn grin remained. Before she could reply, movement crackled in the trees. Shadows shifted, soldiers. Kalira's heart clenched. The patrol had returned. She dragged the human behind the wreck, pressing him against the dirt. Red scanner lights cut across the clearing. Voices spoke in her native tongue. Nothing left but scrap. Move on. The human could not have survived. Kalira held her breath, her blade ready. The human stayed still beside her, his breathing quiet, his eyes steady on hers. For a moment she felt a strange bond in the silence, as if their lives were tied together by the thin thread of chance. At last, the patrol moved on, the forest swallowing their voices. Kalira exhaled slowly. She turned to the human, still holding the core. You see? I risk my life again, not for you, but for my honor. Remember that. He nodded, his eyes shining in the dim light. Of course, honor, nothing else. But the way he said it made her chest tighten. She wanted to strike him for his arrogance. She wanted to leave him, but instead she lifted the core onto her back and helped him to his feet. Together they vanished into the forest shadows. Kalira whispered to herself, trying to hold on to her vow. Never obey a human, never obey a human. But each step she took beside him made the vow feel weaker, and she feared the moment it would break completely. The forest swallowed them as they carried the cracked energy core through the night. Kalira walked in silence, her sharp senses alert, while the human leaned against her arm for support. His steps were slow, uneven, but he refused to stop. The vow beat inside her mind like a drum. Never obey a human. Never help them. Never trust them. And yet here she was, helping him, protecting him, carrying his survival on her back. The glow of the core pulsed faint blue, lighting their faces. To Kalira it felt like a beating heart, fragile, temporary, dangerous, much like the man beside her. The human's voice broke the silence. When we reach a safe place, I can repair some parts. But I'll need tools. Power conduits, metal, Kalira hissed under her breath. Do you think I will fetch these for you like a servant? He shook his head. I think you'll decide for yourself. You always do, her jaw tightened. Always he twisted her pride into a weapon against her. Always he reminded her that she chose to help. And always his words stayed in her head longer than she wanted. They reached a ridge overlooking the valley. Below, lights of Zorath patrol camp shimmered like fireflies. Kalira cursed. Too many. We must turn back. But before they could move, shadows rose around them, the air filled with the hum of plasma rifles. Dozens of her people stepped from the trees, armor shining, weapons aimed. Kalira's heart sank. They had been hunted, trapped. The human tried to stand taller, but his body betrayed him, swaying with weakness. Still, his eyes stayed steady, facing the soldiers without fear. The Zorath commander stepped forward, his voice hard as stone. Kalira, daughter of the Iron Claw, you disgrace us. You hide a human. You protect him. Why? Kalira gripped her blade, her pride burning. This human belongs to me. His fate is mine to decide. A murmur swept through the soldiers. The commander's eyes narrowed. You dare claim ownership of prey? You break our law. You break the vow. The human's voice cut through the tension. She doesn't own me. She saved me. That's the truth. Every head turned toward him. His words were fire, bold, reckless. The commander snarled. Silence, vermin. You are nothing. He raised his hand, and in an instant Kalira and the human were seized. Energy shackles bound their wrists, burning cold against their skin. Kalira fought, but the numbers were too many. The human did not resist. He only looked at her, calm even in chains. They were dragged into the camp and thrown into a steel cage, its bars glowing with electric light. The night outside roared with the sound of soldiers celebrating their capture. Inside, Kalira sat against the wall, fury burning in her chest. She had been betrayed. She had failed her people, her vow, herself. And now she would face punishment worse than death. The human spoke softly beside her. You shouldn't have carried me this far. Now you'll pay the price. Kalira glared at him, but her anger shook with confusion. Why do you not fear them? Why do you not beg? Do you not understand they will kill you? He turned his head, his eyes shining even in the dark cage. I'd rather die free than live as a slave. That's the difference between us. You live chained to your vow. I live by my choice. His words cut deep, sharper than any blade. She wanted to deny them. She wanted to cling to the vow, to the rules that had shaped her life. But sitting in chains, watching him face death with pride, she felt the cracks inside herself widen. The commander's voice thundered outside. At dawn, the human will be executed. Kalira will face trial for treason. Let all see the price of weakness. The soldiers roared in agreement. Kalira gripped the bars, her silver eyes burning with rage. She had faced death 100 times without fear. But now, as she looked at the human beside her, she felt something she had never known before, a fear not for herself but for him. The human leaned closer, his voice a whisper. You can still choose. You can still walk away. Let me die and you keep your vow. Her breath caught. That would be the easy path. That would be the safe path. But deep in her chest, something screamed against it. She stared at him, her voice breaking through clenched teeth. Do not tell me to leave. Do not tell me to watch you die. His eyes softened. Then what will you do, warrior? Kalira closed her eyes. She did not know. For the first time in her life, the vow felt like a chain she wanted to break. The night stretched long. The soldiers laughed outside the cage, celebrating their victory. But inside, Kalira sat in silence, torn between two worlds, her people, her vow, her pride, and the human who refused to fear her. And as the first light of dawn touched the horizon, she knew the breaking point had come. Her next choice would change everything. The night ended too quickly. Dawn crept across the Zorath camp, painting the sky with pale red light. Soldiers gathered in a circle, their armor shining, their voices sharp with cruel laughter. In the center of the camp stood the steel cage glowing with energy. Inside it, Kalira sat in silence, her silver eyes fixed on the ground. Beside her, the human leaned against the bars, his face pale but calm. His chains rattled when he moved, but he did not flinch. The commander stepped forward, his voice booming. Today the vow will be honored. The human dies and the traitor is judged. Let all witness the price of weakness, the crowd roared. The sound shook the earth. Kalira rose slowly, her tall frame towering even in chains. Her eyes locked on the commander. Every muscle in her body screamed for action, but the weight of the vow pressed like iron on her chest. Never obey a human. Never trust them. Never protect them. The human's voice reached her, soft but sharp. You can still walk away. Let me die. Save yourself. She turned on him, fury in her eyes. Silence, human. Do not tell me to abandon you. He looked at her, steady as always. If you stay, you'll lose everything you are. If you fight for me, you'll be hunted. Think carefully, her heart pounded. The vow whispered its chains again, but another voice grew louder inside her. The voice of choice. The voice of her own will. The commander opened the cage with a flash of light. He dragged the human out, chains clattering against the dirt. The crowd shouted for blood. Kalira's chest burned. Each step the human took toward death tore at something deep inside her. And then, something snapped. With a roar that shook the sky, Kalira ripped her chains apart. Sparks flew, the energy shackles shattering against her strength. Soldiers stumbled back in shock. The commander spun, his eyes wide with fury. Kalira, what are you doing? She stepped forward, her voice thunder. I am choosing. Her blade lit with a hiss of plasma. In one motion, she cut down the guards holding the human. Their bodies hit the ground as the crowd gasped in disbelief. The commander shouted, "Seize her!" She has betrayed the vow. Dozens of soldiers rushed forward. Kalira moved like fire, her blade flashing, her body a storm of power. Sparks filled the air as she struck, cutting through armor, breaking weapons. The camp erupted into chaos. The human fell to his knees, coughing, but his eyes never left her. For the first time, Kalira saw something in his gaze she had never wanted to see. Trust. She grabbed him, pulling him to his feet. Move now. He staggered, but obeyed, leaning against her as they pushed through the camp. Soldiers closed in, shouting, firing plasma shots. Kalira blocked with her blade, the energy sizzling against her armor. One soldier lunged from the side. The human, weak but defiant, swung his chain into the soldier's face. The man collapsed. Kalira's eyes widened. Even broken, he fought. Even weak, he refused to be helpless. Together, they forced their way out of the camp. The forest opened before them, glowing with morning light. Behind them, the commander roared in rage. Kalira! You are no longer Zorath. You are nothing. His words cut like knives, but Kalira did not stop. She ran, carrying the human through the trees, her chest burning with fury and freedom. At last, they reached a hidden gorge where the air hummed with silence. Kalira laid him against a rock, her breath ragged. His wounds were worse now, his face pale. You're free, he whispered, his voice fading. She grabbed his collar, pulling him close. Do not speak as if you are leaving me. You will live. His weak smile returned. You broke your vow. For me. Her silver eyes burned. No, I broke it for myself. Because I will not let them decide my fate. I will not let them take you. He closed his eyes, his body trembling. Then finish what you started. Command me. Tell me to keep fighting. The words struck her like lightning. All her life she had sworn never to obey a human. And now, she found herself willing to do the opposite. Kalira pressed her forehead against his, her voice breaking. Then fight. Live. Do not stop. The human's eyes opened, and for the first time, she saw something stronger than pride in him. Hope. Behind them, the sound of pursuit echoed in the trees. The Zorath soldiers were coming. The war was not over, but Kalira no longer cared for the vow. She had chosen her path. She had chosen him, and she would burn the galaxy before letting him fall. The forest was alive with the sound of pursuit. The heavy footsteps of Zorath soldiers echoed through the trees, their voices sharp, their weapons charged. Kalira pressed on, carrying the human across uneven ground, her breath ragged, her silver eyes blazing with fury. Each step was harder than the last. Her people were not far behind, and she knew what awaited if they caught her. Death for him, and a fate worse than death for her. But she did not care. She had chosen. And now, she would see that choice through. The human stirred against her shoulder. His voice was weak, but his words were steady. Put me down. You can still escape if you leave me. Kalira stopped, her body trembling with rage. She set him against a stone, glaring into his eyes. Do not insult me with such words. I do not run from battles. I do not abandon those I fight for. He smiled faintly. Even near death, his eyes carried that stubborn fire. Then what will you do? There are too many. Kalira looked into the forest. Red lights flickered between the trees. The soldiers were closing in, their chants echoing the vow she had broken. Never obey a human. Never trust them. Never protect them. But those words meant nothing now. She turned back to him, her voice breaking through the roar of her thoughts. Tell me what to do. The human blinked, surprised. What? Her eyes burned with a new fire. Command me. Give me purpose. If I must fight, let it be by your will. His lips parted, disbelief crossing his face. A Zorath warrior, proud, untouchable, was asking for his command. Kalira, he whispered, I thought you vowed never to obey a human. Her hand tightened on her blade. That vow is broken. You are no longer just human. You are mine. The air grew heavy between them. The sound of the approaching army filled the silence, but for a moment it felt like the world had stopped. The human's voice trembled. Then I command you to survive, to keep going, no matter the cost. Kalira's chest tightened. She had expected a battle order, a demand for blood. Instead, he gave her something else. Freedom disguised as command. Her heart roared with new strength. She rose, blade in hand, and faced the shadows of her people. The first soldiers broke through the trees, weapons raised. Kalira charged, her battle cry echoing across the valley. She struck like fire, blade, slicing through armor, her body a storm of steel and fury. Sparks filled the air. The forest shook with the clash of war. The human watched, weak but unblinking, as Kalira cut down those who had once been her kin. Her movements were merciless, yet there was something different about her now. She was no longer fighting for her vow. She was fighting for him. The commander appeared, his armor shining like black stone. His voice thundered above the chaos. Kalira, you are no warrior. You are a traitor. For a human? For filth? Kalira's silver eyes locked on him. She stood tall, her blade dripping sparks. I am not a traitor. I am free. And that is something you will never be. They clashed, steel against steel, power against power. The ground split beneath their blows, the forest trembling with their fury. The commander was strong, trained in the old ways, but Kalira's fire was unstoppable. She fought with something more than strength. She fought with choice. At last, with a roar, she drove her blade through his chest. His eyes widened in shock before the light faded from them. The commander fell, the ground swallowing his body. Silence spread across the battlefield. The remaining soldiers froze, their faith broken, their leader dead. One by one, they stepped back into the trees, their chants dying on the wind. Kalira stood victorious, her body trembling with exhaustion, her blade cracked but still burning. She turned to the human. He was still alive, his eyes locked on hers, filled with something new, something softer than pride. She dropped to her knees beside him, pressing her forehead against his. Her voice was low, almost desperate. Do not leave me. Command me again. Keep me bound to you. His hand, weak but steady, touched hers. You don't need my commands, you've already chosen. Her throat tightened. For the first time, Kalira, the warrior who once vowed never to obey, begged, then choose me too, or I will burn this world for nothing. His smile returned, faint but real. Then I choose you. The words filled her chest with fire brighter than any vow. She had broken her chains, abandoned her people, and embraced the unthinkable. Obedience not forced, but given freely. And as the two red moons rose above the forest, Kalira knew her life was no longer her own. She vowed never to obey a human, but fate had made her beg for it, and she did not regret it.